we have a very special guest today. But first, I'm looking good, feeling good, loving life. I hope you can say the same today. Our guest, he hardly needs an introduction. He is the owner, the promoter. He is in charge of everything IWC. He is Mr. Justin Plummer.
I thought you were describing Jen Plummer there for a minute. I was
Well,
like, hey, I'm here.
Maybe she could be the next interview.
That'll take some convincing. But good luck. We could ask her.
Let's jump right into it.
Let's do it.
How did the love of wrestling start for you?
Oh God, I don't even know. I mean, my first memories of wrestling, I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and there was these little, you may remember, thumb wrestlers made out of rubber at the daycare I went to, and I just loved playing with those. Don't know why, didn't know what wrestling was. And then probably in like 89, 90, got into watching wrestling because my parents were like, hey, Justin, here's those toys you play with on TV. And it was right around the time, it must have been like November of 90, because I remember the Survivor Series, 1990 Survivor Series, the Saturday Night Main Event that led up to Survivor Series, you know, it was the Ultimate Warriors title reigns when I got into it. Started watching on TV and just, I don't know, just fell in love, and then started buying the action figures, playing them, then watching them on TV, and you know, seeing the guys that you are playing with on TV, and it just was so cool. I was just captured from the beginning.
Did you have any favorites growing up?
Hogan, of course. I mean, everybody loved Hogan. I actually, with my Hasbro action figures, my cousin I'd play with my cousin, and he always told me Hogan would win every time. He says, you know, Hogan doesn't have to win every time we play this. And that was like a mind-blowing concept to me. Like, wait a minute, you're right. We could have anybody win. This is so cool. We could do whatever we want. But yeah, Hogan was a big one. Ultimate Warrior was a big one. Jake the Snake Roberts, of course. Just, you know, the typical kid in the 80s,
all the top
90s.
Guys. Yeah. So, after eventually you got a little older, you found out about independent wrestling. How did you first find out about independent wrestling?
I actually didn't know much about independent wrestling. As a kid, I grew up in Elizabeth, so nearby was McKeesport, and I went to NWA East, PWX, which I believe was PWX at the time, with Samu and Shane Douglas and Bubba. And I went to one event with my buddy. Our parents dropped us off. They were probably like 13, 14 years old. That was my only independent wrestling experience. The only time I ever went back was for FNW dance thing up at the Butler Days Inn when I was in college, because we saw a commercial on Pro Wrestling News and Views. You know, those guys were great. And Axe from the Demolition was going to be there. So Hooven and I actually were buddies in college.
Okay.
We went up and watched it, and it's funny to look back now because so many of these guys that I know were a part of that event. You know, but those were the only 2 independent shows I've ever been to. I never even heard of IWC before I started working for IWC.
So how'd you get involved with IWC?
I was probably 25-ish, and I had already, you know, met Jen. We were married young. We got married when we were 24. Already owned a house. Already started talking about family. Already had a job, and I was kind of like, well, I need something. So, and that's all I ever wanted in life. I never wanted to be rich and famous. I just wanted to have a family, raise a family like my own. That was my goal. And I'm like, well, I'm on my way, and I'm in my mid-20s. I need to set other goals. And so I always loved wrestling, and I did some announcing stuff, just stupid stuff. And I thought I should try to find a place to be a ring announcer. That would be awesome. No experience or anything. And I know the owners of Court Time. They're family friends of us, and I had heard that they had lost their ring announcer, not knowing the story behind it, which is Norm left and Chuck took over. I didn't know any of that. I just heard that they lost their ring announcer and that they may need someone. Well, I was a year late. So I called up Chuck and just kind of said, hey, I'm just a guy looking for something new to do in life. I'd like to be a ring announcer. He said, let me look at you on Facebook. So he looked up my pictures to make sure I was normal, I guess, and called me back, and he said, well, we're thinking about going back on TV, but we want to start maybe testing it out online first. We have a ring announcer, but how would you feel about doing a web show? I've never hosted anything, I never video edited anything before, but I wanted something to do, so that's how I kind of got in there. I got that opportunity. It was actually right here in 2000. Oh God, you were on the show against Shane Taylor here. It was my first event. It was probably like 7 years ago.
That was a while ago now.
Pedro was sick, and so Chuck called me. I remember. Did we lose something?
We lost the light.
Oh man! Now we look bad. I got a call. I was at the bar with my dad watching March Madness, hoops, and Chuck called and said, "Can you be in Clearfield tomorrow?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So I came up here and did the ring announcing thing, and then from there, my role just kind of evolved.
Why? I mean, when I see you and knowing you in person, you're not a small guy. Why never wrestle?
Now it's the family and the job and everything, and just it's harder to work out.
Have you ever thought about it though?
Yeah. See, back then I didn't know that it was the types of people that were getting into it. So I didn't know that I never considered myself, even at my best, like this big guy based on the other people that I hung out with. But then when I got in wrestling, I did kind of think like, wow. And even when I got a couple years into it, I'm like, I don't want a better built guy. Not now, of course, but in my 20s, I'm like, I'm decently built. But at that point, it was kind of like I felt like it was too late. You think it's too late. You're 28 and you're too old. That's just
I'm not sure Diamond Dallas Page.
I know. And every year you just keep thinking. Now I'm 33, so it's definitely probably a little too late to start. But yeah, it was just something I didn't realize that there were schools around. I didn't realize that you could get that education so easily. So just lack of knowledge of how to get in. Although I knew Shane Taylor, he was also a fraternity brother of mine with Hooven. And I remember it was probably my last year in school, and I remember him coming back and telling me, hey, I'm a wrestler now, I went and got trained, and I'm like, I thought it was crazy. How did you do this? How did you figure that out? Not knowing there were all these schools around, but
so what was
maybe another life, right?
Still time, 33's
yeah.
The new 23, I think they say.
I hope so.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, well,
I feel like it's the new 43, 53.
Well, 43 doesn't feel really good. I can tell you that right now. So, eventually it comes to the point where Chuck is done. And the opportunity comes up for you to buy IWC. Is that fairly accurate? I mean, am I getting the facts a little wrong?
For the most part, that's right.
How difficult of a decision was that for you to say, I want to step into this role?
It would have been, at the time, a lot easier, but our second kid was going to be born any moment at the time, right when the transition would have happened. So that's why it took me 5 or 6 months to decide to do it. But I knew early in the year with, Chuck was having, his mother passed away, and I think he was realizing he needs to value his time with his family more. And this takes, he did it all on his own, man. I mean, he put a lot of time into this. And I think he was just realizing he needed to spend the time with his family and needed to. So I knew he was on his way out, and he had mentioned, I think I'm going to just close it down. But at the time, I thought we just had a great roster. He had a good thing going. We had a great training school. Darren De Niro was in the middle of, was it Darren? Actually, Darren just graduated. And there was other guys, too, that had high potential at the time that were with him. And I think it was Britt Baker's class was in the middle. So they would have been cut off completely and had and they would have been, where would they have gone? I'm sure they would have figured it out. You're man, he's got such a good thing going here. I hate to see it go, but I'd love to give it a shot, but the timing's just so bad. But after a couple of months, I decided just see what happens. We'll give it a shot, and I knew it would be a challenge, but...
Well, what were some of the early obstacles that you faced?
Well, it's always tough coming in as, a backstage announcer and a guy that hasn't worked, and trying to get the respect of the guys. Now, for some guys, being around helped. For others, I think it may have hurt.
How do you think you ultimately gained the respect of the boys?
Do I have it?
I mean, they're all here working for you tonight.
Yeah, I just work really hard. I just try to. I just think it's my work ethic. They see how much I sacrifice to keep this place going and to try to grow it and expand. And I just treat them with respect. I mean, I like to think that Jen and I are very unique when compared to other wrestling promoters. And I've got a lot of feedback from a lot of guys that I'm just a guy. I'm not, I'm just a dad. I'm just a buddy. I try to just be a normal guy. If the show does well, great. If the show doesn't go well, an agreement's an agreement. You pay people what you owe them. You try to have a good time, because ultimately, other than getting to the next level, the good time is what this is all about. And you just try to be as honest and as pleasant as you can. So.
When I follow you on social media, I see there's a lot of pictures of you and your wife and your family. So for me, when I ran shows, my wife was crucial to me being successful. And I'm sure you feel the same way about your wife, Jen. Can you explain what role she's played here and how helpful she's been?
Oh God, she does, every year she does more and more. Because with my job becoming more and more time consuming, she's really stepped up. That's why I say Chuck did this on his own. I don't know how he did it on his own because there's so many different aspects. And honestly, had I known, you know, you think, oh, you get to put together shows and now I can book the way I want to book. And that's 10% of everything that you got to deal with. You got to deal with these people's relationships with each other, and you got to deal with the business side of things and the state side of things and the promoting and advertising and the budgeting. Had I had known it was that much, I don't know if I would have done it. But we're here now. And I couldn't imagine doing it without her. I mean, she does so much, and she's got a good background in HR, and she's a genuinely good person, so when there are tough situations that come up, she is crucial in helping to deal with those. And the fans love her. I mean, she is, when I get tied up, I try to get out there and shake everybody's hands, but if I'm ever tied up, she's the face. When they walk in, she's who they see. When they leave, she's who they see. And she's great. I couldn't imagine doing this without her. I couldn't do it without her.
When I asked you to do this interview, you said, maybe. I'm not a big fan of being in front of the camera. Why is that?
I don't know. I used to be. I used to do it. I don't know if I'm just getting old and tired now, you know, but I don't have much to say. I mean, I don't have that interesting of a story, I don't think. So I don't feel like I have much to offer, but I know I've known you for all these years, so I figured let's just give it a shot.
I didn't know if maybe perhaps, I mean, I don't know how much other wrestling you see outside of maybe WWE and this, your company. Do you feel like, have you seen enough shows to have an opinion on whether other promoters are in the ring in front of the camera too much?
No, I probably haven't seen enough to judge that. So I guess I can't give you a good feel for that. So I don't know what the appropriate amount is and what other people are doing.
We all have people who criticize us. We all have terrible reviewers like me.
Yeah.
That will say certain things. More often than not, there are anonymous people in the world of wrestling that'll say things about you, try to tear you down. What are some of the things you think people that you've seen that people like to say about you that maybe aren't necessarily fair or true?
I don't. You tell me. You might have a better finger on the pulse. What are people saying? Anything?
I did a little bit of research.
I knew it. Here it is.
So,
what is? You can't say that on this.
Okay, I'll leave that one out. But the one thing, because I know a lot of the guys that used to work here when you sort of first took over.
Yeah.
And there was a big complaint, and I mean, you had to have heard this, that a lot of the older talent were sort of pushed to the side to make room for new talent. How would you respond to people that would say that? I'm not going to name names, but I'm trying to think, because I can think of about 5 guys right off the top of my head that told me in confidence that you know, they didn't feel what had happened to them was right.
And maybe I didn't handle everything the best that I could, but again, I was so new to all of it and just try to please everybody, which in the end, when you do that, you end up pleasing nobody. But I could see how that could be a criticism. It's just you can only do the same thing so many times, I feel, before it's kind of, you need to try something new and change things up. And that's even, I mean, it's even with our guys. You know, I've got some guys, we've been running some things that have been going on a while where it's like, maybe we need to freshen up. But I didn't have good ideas, you know, for guys, and I always ask guys to give me ideas, because I'm open to, these guys know their characters better than I do. So throw it at me, let's go for it. But it was just, there was nothing really good there. And then also with a lot of guys saying, it's my last year, I only have 2 years left, a couple years left. To me, it's like, well, let's start building the next guy. Let's start building the Andrew Palaces, let's start building the Wardlows. And if those guys are still getting put under, how do I build them? And what happens when you all retire at the same time? Then I'm left with nothing. So a lot of it's just trying to plan for the future.
At a certain point, you have to get new talent in to improve the product.
Even if it's, and that's not saying that the talent that leaves was not talented enough or even more talented than what's coming in. It's just trying to stay fresh. I mean, look at Chris Jericho, I think is one of the greatest. Constantly is leaving and coming back, leaving and coming back. Do you think if he stayed around? I mean, there's other guys that have stuck around on the big stage, and it's kind of like, you know, all right, okay. But yeah, that's all it is. I mean, I have been lucky, and even the guys that you're referencing, I've been lucky to work with some great guys. And you know, whether I handled situations right or not, I don't know, but hopefully it all works out in the end.
Yeah,
I mean,
nothing's
nothing's ever over, so who knows who will be back and when they'll be back.